Most beginner violins being sold right now are complete scams. I'm not even exaggerating. I've seen so many beginners waste hundreds of dollars on shiny pieces of junk which sound terrible and literally kill their motivation to play. So in this video, I'll show you the most common traps, whether renting might actually be smarter, and 5 things that you absolutely need to check before getting your first violin. Trap number 1 is one of the most common mistakes that beginners do when getting an instrument, and it always results in them getting a trashy instrument which makes them want to quit. The best way to imagine it is to imagine going to a gas station to buy sushi. Sure, it's technically sushi, but would you trust it to actually taste fresh? On the other hand, imagine eating sushi at a top-notch sushi bar. The chef knows what they're doing, the quality is check, and the experience is actually enjoyable. Getting a violin from a music store or from Amazon is like buying sushi from a gas station. You just can't trust it. That's why you gotta buy a violin from a reputable violin store. The luthier at the violin store actually knows his instruments. It's high quality. But a violin from some random music store which sells other instruments as well, they don't have the expertise to know the ins and outs of the violin. And the one who's gonna suffer with the trashy instrument is, unfortunately, you. However, this second trap which I'm about to share is so incredibly easy to fix, but 9 out of 10 beginners never actually check this. It's failing to make sure that you bought an entire set and not just a single violin. Don't get scammed by only buying a violin and having nothing given with it. What are you gonna do with just a violin? Fuck it? Here's a list of everything that I would recommend to be in your set. Pause the video if necessary. Next, let's move on to the third trap that most beginners fall into. To explain, let me tell you a quick story. So, around 6 years ago, I had this friend who bought an instrument off of Amazon. I'll admit, it looked nice. Shiny polish, fancy finish. Her mom was actually bragging about it. And back then, I honestly felt kinda jealous. But at the same time, I knew something was off. And sure enough, a couple of years later, I ran into her again, and she was still stuck playing beginner pieces. Why? Because her violin kept causing her problems. Later, she upgraded to a super expensive instrument. Gorgeous wood, amazing sound. And I was like, wow, she's gonna take off now. But to my surprise, when I saw her a few years after, she quit. She said the violin just wasn't for her. And that's when it hit me. The trap isn't just cheap violins, it's the flashy ones too. Beginners either fall into cheap Amazon junk or get seduced by overpriced shiny instruments. But here's the truth, neither price tag nor appearance really matters. It's the sound of the violin. Which is why when you go to the violin store, I want you to completely ignore the price tag. Only focus on the sound. Hear multiple violins and then ask about the price. Next, I want to bring up the topic of rent versus buying. Whatever preconceived notion you have, put that aside, because what I'm about to reveal might just change your mind. Let's start off by talking about buying. Most people buy an instrument because they want to save money on the long run, just want to get the expense over, and know they're actually going to continue the instrument. A ballpark range for a beginner violin tends to be $200 to $600. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, I would go for something 400 plus, because below that, the violins tend to sound really bad. Okay, that's all great, but there are 2 major downsides that most beginners overlook when buying an instrument. The first one is that you don't know how long you're going to continue the violin. There could always come the situation where you're forced to quit. I don't want you to quit, I'm just saying. Now you've kinda wasted a good chunk of money on something which you're not even gonna use anymore. The second downside to buying a violin is that if something happens, it's all on you. Look, sometimes life happens. You had your violin out and you spilled your coffee all over it. Your 2-year-old son decides to step on your bow. These things tend to happen, especially as a beginner. Now let's talk about renting. Listen up, because this one ain't sunshines and rainbows either. Why would you even rent an instrument? You're unsure of how long you're gonna continue it. You wanna avoid the upfront cost. You want a well set up instrument that's ready to play. And you're open to upgrading later without a hassle. Expect around $20 to $50 per month for a beginner rental. The good thing about renting is that if you screw something up, they've got you. But really the only downside about renting is the amount of money that you're gonna spend in the long run. You're trying to learn violin, not rip a hole in your wallet. So what really is the solution? When renting, make sure to ask if a portion of the rental will go towards buying later. Many stores offer something called rent-to-own credits. So if you've paid $200 total through your rental, when you decide to buy the instrument, you've already got $100 off, something like that. Now let's talk about the 5 things that you absolutely need to check before getting your first violin. Failing to check these will cost you tons of dollars in the long run. 1. The bridge is straight and not tilted. 2. The pegs should be able to move without slipping. I literally talked to someone whose pegs were slipping all the time and they literally spent a whole hour on tuning. Think about that. A whole hour of your life just spent on moving these knobs. So please check this. 3. Make sure that the bow is straight. If you put your eye near the screw and look forward to the tip of the violin, it should be straight. It shouldn't be tilting to the left or the right. If it's leaning to one side, make sure to check with your luthier about it. Number 4, make sure that you have 4 fine tuners. This is more of a personal thing, but most beginners struggle a lot with having only 1 fine tuner. 4 can be more helpful, so make sure to check it out. Number 5, check if the sound is buzzing or rattling. If it is, get out of there. You don't want that violin. The sound has to be warm and ringy. Number 6, make sure that the strings are equally distanced. The distance between the strings should be even and it shouldn't be too high off the fingerboard. I know this could feel like a lot, but if needed, rewatch this portion of the video. But before you get your violin, I want you to go to the top link in the description to schedule a free masterclass with me. I help adult beginners who feel like they've missed their chance at learning violin before. We're not trying to become professionals, we're just chasing progress and to have a fun hobby that transports us away from the stress of the workplace. Once you're done with that, click and watch this video on the exact system to take you from a beginner to advanced on violin. Thanks.